What's up, guys? It's Nate, One Man's Odyssey. Today I'm in southeastern Colorado. Got the Coors Light hat to prove it. I'm hiking up today the east Spanish Peak in the Spanish Peaks Wilderness. I don't think you can see West Spanish Peak, but it's right there to my left. And the East Spanish Peak is up this way. It's early June right now. The last hike I did that was successful was mid-May when I did my backpacking trip with Lane and Devin. 2 weeks ago, I attempted to get into the high country a little bit, to try to hike Mount Phillips in the Cimarron Canyon State Park / Philmont Scout Ranch. I think it's kind of over here over my right shoulder, and I was unsuccessful. I encountered pretty deep snow patches around 11,100 feet. It was only about 600 vertical feet from my goal. It was very disappointing. I had to turn back. So today, we're a couple weeks later in the season, and the Spanish Peaks tend to get a little bit less snow than like the actual main mass of the mountains. So I did bring snowshoes just in case. I really regretted not bringing my snowshoes 2 weeks ago. They were in the car and I just didn't bring them. But today I've got my snowshoes just in case. Although thus far, while I have seen some pretty deep snow drifts, I haven't had to walk over them. So I think probably we're in the clear right now, but just in case there's something on the summit, I'm gonna hold on to the snowshoes. I started from the Wahatoya trailhead. Actually, there's two trailheads. There's the two-wheel drive trailhead and then the four-wheel drive trailhead. I started the four-wheel drive one. It removes about over 2 miles and about 1,000 feet, at least. I don't know exactly off the top of my head, but at least 1,000 feet of elevation gain and loss, which if you have to do that, it kind of turns this trip from, so far I wouldn't say anything's been difficult, and I don't think overall the trip will be difficult. I'm expecting 9.5 miles, around 3,200 feet of gain and loss. And so I would call that a moderate trip for my standards, especially if it's all on trail, which it is. But when you slap on that extra 2 miles each way plus 1,000 feet at least of gain and loss, that's a pretty long day. So starting from that upper trailhead is very helpful. That road was definitely rough. I definitely would not recommend not having high clearance. Definitely would not recommend having only two-wheel drive, and I really would recommend four-wheel drive. I was able to make it up in 4 high. I'll probably go down in 4 low just because it was very steep. The last time I was in this area was, to do a hike was about 3 years ago when all the forests were closed. I came up to Colorado and I hiked West Spanish Peak. And so, I met someone there who was a really cool guy. We ran into a couple other people on the mountain, but pretty sparse. Today, saw nobody else at the trailhead. I really doubt maybe I'll see one person on the way down, but I definitely am not going to see anybody on the way up. Super excited to hike this summit. This is the highest I've been. We're at about 11,650 feet right now, and this is the highest I've been all year so far. I think it's actually my first time being above tree line, so it's always nice to hit those firsts of the calendar year of the season and do a cool mountain. The challenges of this peak are really just the steepness. It kind of meanders for the first 2 miles of trail, and then it starts climbing fairly steeply. I have a feeling this last approach is going to be pretty steep on talus, though I've read trip reports that say that this talus isn't really that bad. The other thing is it's exposed, not really to fall danger, but more to the elements, which is why it's kind of breezy right now. I wasn't really expecting that, and I really hope it doesn't turn into intense wind because there's no protection up there. And it's another good reason to be well off the mountain by the time any storms might come through, because you're the only thing up there. Another thing that makes the Spanish Peak super cool is that they're basically the easternmost high peaks in the Rockies, and I think West Spanish Peak, there are no peaks in America further east that are higher than it. In the United States of America, and it's the furthest east peak above 13,000 feet. And the same is true for East Spanish Peak. There are no peaks higher that are east of it in the United States, nor are there any other peaks above 12,000 feet. Not only that, there are no peaks above 10,000 feet or peaks above 11,000 feet further east than East Spanish Peak. So I think when we get to the top, it'll just straight up look like we're looking off the edge of the world. And I'm super excited to go up there. Enough yapping. I'm going to put on some sunscreen, have a small snack, and then we'll keep marching up the peak. I should say that we've done a lot of the peaks so far. I waited a long time to talk to you guys because I really wanted to get a lot of miles under me just because of that afternoon storm danger, and because it was a long drive to get here. I'd like to spend some time with my family. I wanted to put some miles behind me. We're probably about 3/4 of the way mileage-wise and 2/3 of the way elevation-wise. like I said, the entire hike's about 3,200 feet. We have about like 1,200 feet of elevation to gain. So we've done most of this hike already. As you've been seeing, it's mostly been forested, a couple nice creeks. I did get my feet wet a little bit, but they're already dry pretty much. So anyway, now snack and let's head up. Well, before I was kind of following a defined route with cairns, and now if there's a defined route, I'm not on it, but it seems pretty easy to just kind of take whichever way up you want. I think we're around 400 feet or so from the summit, and it looks like maybe the worst of the talus is behind us. There's one snowdrift there I might break out the snowshoes for, but I doubt it. It looks like it's easily avoidable. We were behind, like, barely shielded from the south wall of snow and rock, and this wind is completely gone. So maybe I will be able to say something on top of the peak. I was thinking I wouldn't be able to. We're so close, probably about less than 200 feet. I've been misquoting the elevation of East Spanish Peak. It's actually more like 12,600 feet. So when I thought we were 400 feet away, that was accurate. But I didn't know our elevation. I was just eyeballing it. Turns out, yeah, it was true. We were about 400. We've gained about 200, and now we're only about 200 feet away. So this is the final push. It's hard to tell because the slope kind of blocks any view of anything, but according to my GPS, we are like 100 feet from the summit horizontally and like maybe 40 feet from the summit vertically. So let's head all the way up. Oh yeah, there it is. Yes. East Spanish Peak. Woo! Nice echo. All right, guys. Great climb. Really needed this. Doing this peak, a bucket list peak for me. I love the Spanish Peaks. I've wanted to hike both of them for a long time, so it's nice to round out both of them with this one. Getting this bucket list one in Colorado just feels great. It has me feeling really good for the hiking season, the high country season. I'm pretty stoked. I'm pretty happy to be up here. The views are just incredible. I mentioned that East Spanish Peak. There are no peaks further east than East Spanish Peak, and same with West Spanish Peak, because that one's taller than East Spanish Peak. And you know, I've thought a lot. I've done a lot of thinking about this notion of what is the tallest peak east of the Rockies. I remember for a long time, I always heard that it was Harney Peak, now referred to as Black Elk Peak. I kind of started thinking about that and thinking, you know, are the Spanish Peaks part of the Rocky Mountains technically? I mean, you'll see it in a minute. I'm looking at the main range of the Sangre de Cristos, and they're all pretty well connected. It's very obviously this like uplift, you know, tectonic plates coming together, and then here's the Spanish Peaks just sitting out here completely removed from them. So what gives with that? And I did some research, and it's basically like I'm not a geologist. I'm a nuclear engineer, and so I don't know that much about geology, but apparently they're igneous intrusions. And while the uplift of the igneous intrusion is like somehow related to the Rocky Mountain Rift uplift, it is not one and the same. So by some definitions, you know, the Spanish Peaks are actually the tallest peaks east of the Rockies. Now, given the close proximity, the fact that you literally have to drive through the foothills of the Rockies to get to the Spanish Peaks, I don't think many others would buy that argument. One peak that I'm tentatively hoping to hike later this year is Fisher's Peak in Fisher's Peak State Park in Colorado. That's another one that has a pretty good claim to being the highest peak east of the Rockies. That one, it's a volcanic peak. It's much further removed from the main mass of the Rockies than the Spanish Peaks. So the climb overall, I would say not scrambling. I mean, it's a talus climb, right? So at times you might find yourself putting a hand on a rock or kind of hoisting yourself up, but it's not what I would call a scramble. I would call it a class 1, maybe a class 1 plus. The navigation wasn't really difficult. I mean, the path, I lost, if there was a path, I lost it after a while, but it's so easy to just keep going up that it wasn't really a big deal. The below tree line was in pretty good shape, not much deadfall. As you kind of get further up towards tree line, while you're so below tree line, the trail does get to be a little brushy, a little overgrown, but really not too bad. And there's lots of cairns that have been put up to guide you, so it's really not very difficult navigationally. I don't really understand if you scroll through All Trails. There's the reason why I don't like that app. Is like so many people tell you that this peak and West Spanish Peak are scrambles. They're not scrambles. Are really difficult. I mean, if you're not used to this kind of thing, maybe, but I wouldn't say that this was more difficult than most 12,000 foot than most 12,000 foot peaks in New Mexico. That's for sure. Like Wheeler Peak, well, Wheeler Peak's 13,000, but like you get my point. It's really not that difficult. And even the drive, I think the last All Trails report on the drive said this is not a 4-wheel drive road. This is a dirt bike and ATV road only. It's like, well, I think my 4Runner is kind of bulky. It's the only thing I really don't like about it is that it's bulky. And I was able to make it up just fine. Like, it was steep. It required some technical ability, not much. It really wasn't that difficult. So I wouldn't get scared off by the descriptions of these two mountains on All Trails. They're really not that difficult. But so I'm going to enjoy a beer. The beer I'm enjoying today is Jester King. They're a brewery, I think, based out of Austin. Yep. They just started like within the last 6 months or 12 months distributing in New Mexico. So they're like a semi-famous brewery. I feel like I've definitely heard of them. They're semi-famous in terms of like the craft beer scene. And so I've been their stuff's kind of expensive, kind of like $20 a 4-pack, between $18 and $20 a 4-pack, which I think is kind of expensive, but it's usually pretty good. So I'm going to open this up right now. It's a West Coast IPA. It's called the Garys. And I don't know what the deal with the cats are. The Garys to me is reminiscent of Fallout 3. I cannot remember which vault it is where you encounter all the Garys. But anyway, definitely West Coast IPA. It's piney. It's resiny. It's got that like citrusness note that is classic in a West Coast IPA. I feel like there's a weird like nostalgia thing going on with West Coast IPAs right now. I was thinking about eating, and I bought another box of these Patagonia sardines that I had, back when I did Cerro de la Hoya. I'm not feeling too hungry right now. I think I'm just gonna stick with the beer and then probably eat my like electrolyte block stuff and then head down the peak. Beautiful day in Colorado. Thank you guys for tuning in. And I should mention, there's a register up here, but one is pretty paltry. It looks like there's only one page in there. Two, I can't get it out. I can get the pen out, but I can't get the actual paper out because the paper is expanded beyond the size of the bottle. So if you want to sign a register, you might want to bring up a jar. Anyway, cheers guys. I'm gonna head down this peak.